This video is going to be a bit different from my usual videos. Normally I cover bands with long discographies. You know, the ones that are difficult to go through on your own without investing a considerable amount of time into. Well, today's band only put out 3 albums and then disappeared. But in the process, they altered the idea of what was considered possible within their chosen genre. Why you might like Rapture. Rapture was a Finnish death doom / melodic death metal band. Not to be confused with The Rapture, the post-punk electronica band from New York City. Anyway, Rapture would take a lot of inspiration from Catatonia's Brave Murder Day. And since Catatonia had moved away from that sound, many fans of that style were hoping some other bands would explore the concept in more detail. And Rapture, alongside bands like Daylight Dies and Swallow the Sun, were there to pick up where Catatonia left off. Now, this is a band that I didn't discover until their last album came out back in 2005. I don't remember exactly what I was doing, but I had Pandora radio on in the background and I heard this beautifully depressing but heavy music coming from the other room. I quickly ran out to see who the band was, and I had no idea who they were. I then went down to Streetlight Records to see if I could find anything from them, and they didn't have anything either. I then had to reach out to one of my contacts in Italy, and they sent me their second album. After I had listened to that album, I needed more from this band. Now, forgive me in advance because I seem to butcher Finnish names more than others, so I know I'm going to get these names wrong. I'm not sure exactly who the founders of Rapture are, but their initial lineup consisted of Tommy Ahlgren on lead guitar, Petri Eskelinen on vocals, Samu Rausalainen on drums, Jarno Saloma on rhythm guitar, and Yanni Oman on bass. Oh, and Sammy Kartunen on keyboards. And they would release their debut album, Futile, in 1999. Like I said before, this album would borrow heavily from Catatonia's Brave Murder Day. And the songs don't have your standard pop music structure to them. They don't do the whole verse-chorus thing. Instead, they were more about creating this dark, melancholic atmosphere that takes you on a journey into the deepest areas of your soul. To Forget opens with slowly raising the volume, which is a production technique I dislike and often complain about, but for some reason it works here. This is a great primer song to let you know what this album is like. For example, the intro riff lasts for about a minute and a half before the song even starts. This entire album is about atmosphere first, and every song takes its time building its atmosphere. But the allure of this style of music has always been the blending of beauty with ugliness, and this is where Rapture excels. Meanwhile, Futile starts off much the same as To Forget, but it quickly picks up the pace. This is another very long song, and much of it is spent in repetition, but around the halfway mark, the song shifts to a much more atmospheric tone with ethereal guitars and spoken word. Someone I Don't Know starts off with a rich acoustic tone reminiscent of Kansas's Dust in the Wind, later to be joined by the rest of the band, and it's here where I want to mention the soft cry of Tommy's lead guitar style. It's not just this song, it's everywhere, and it's the real charm of this band. The second half of the song sees a shift to more of a Brave Murder Day chord progression, with Petri conjuring up some guttural vocals that sound like something from Aaron Stainthorpe of My Dying Bride. About Leaving is both the final and the longest song on the album. It opens with more of a faster-paced rock beat and more aggressive vocals, but at the same time, there are these gentle acoustic guitars underneath all of it. Midway through the song, they have their obligatory slowdown to add atmosphere to the song. And this is where the last few minutes of the song dwells, in order to remind us once again that Tommy's guitar is the real star of this show. This is one of those albums that regularly pops up on top 10s of the greatest or most influential Death Doom albums. This isn't something you listen to for one song. This is a mood album. This is something you put on and allow it to just envelop you. In 2002, the band released their second album, Songs for the Withering. This album would see them drop keyboards entirely, and Alexia Hokus would be brought in to play both bass and rhythm guitars. Also, Petri would now do clean singing only, and a second singer, Henry Vilberg, would be brought in to do the harsh vocals. This album would maintain much of the atmosphere of the first album and move towards a more traditional song structure. And by traditional song structure, I mean they would cut down on the repetitions of measures and move towards a verse-chorus song structure. Nameless is our introduction to the readjustment of the band's sound, and right away you can hear it in the vocals. Bringing in a second singer for the harsh vocals gives Petri the ability to focus on his clean singing, and this aspect of the band's sound is elevated for him. Henry's low growls also stand out in this song, perfectly setting the tone for the rest of the album. Dead Names is Petri's time to shine. His voice has improved by leaps and bounds compared to the first album, and nowhere else is it more apparent than here. This is also the shortest song on the album, coming in at 3 minutes and 53 seconds. And in that short time, they managed to capture almost everything great about this band in one song. Rain Tracks hits the ground running. With its driving beat and Tommy's classic Rapture tone, I fell in love with this song from the first time I listened to it. Henry belts out the verse in an almost rock and roll cadence, but in guttural growls. Rain Tracks is for Henry what Two Dead Names was for Petri. And Petri does join in, but only momentarily for what you might consider a chorus. But it's just more like a bridge. The song doesn't actually have a chorus to it, but it feels like it. Envelop starts off with Tommy's unmistakable guitar tone. We are then joined by Petri's clean vocals for the opening verse, but instead of transitioning into a chorus, it shifts into Henry's guttural growls. This song mostly consists of a series of call and response between the two singers, with the music changing to fit each singer's style. This is rarely done well in the world of extreme metal, and Rapture did it best. Farewell is a 7-minute long instrumental with some spoken word here and there, and it's worth every minute. The song perfectly conveys the emotion of loss in a way that few songs can. You can superimpose whatever emotions you are feeling onto this song, which turns it into a deeply personal experience. I'm not usually one for instrumentals, but whenever this one comes on, I can't help but crank up the volume.
Existence now is not what I was told. Wastelands of sorrow, I welcome all I receive. Blood before tears, you will see.
This is my personal favorite album from them. Maybe it's because it was the first one I owned, but there is just something about the way the songs on the album convey emotion that get to me every time I listen to it. Also, Petrie's clean vocal style isn't something you hear in metal, and on paper it shouldn't work, but somehow it does. By 2005, the band would add Sammy Hinkle on bass and release their third and final album, Silent Stage. This album would continue to expand upon the themes of Songs for the Withering. The first thing that stands out to me about Misery 24/7 is the fullness of the production. The tone of the bass is lush and warm and sounds amazing on a hi-fi system. I wish I knew who produced and mixed this album because they deserve some praise. Misery 24/7 follows a more traditional verse-chorus song structure, and Henry and Petrie picked back up where they left off from on the previous album. Past Nightmares is another song that starts off running, but quickly slows down to allow Petrie's clean vocals to take center stage. Now, even though Songs for the Withering is my favorite album from the band, Past Nightmares is my favorite song, and Petrie's performance here is a big reason for that.
But so much has changed since then. Days still stretched into sleepless nights. So much has changed since then.
Just as you have been lured into a comfortable place by Petrie, Henry jumps in with his growls as the music returns to the progression from the opening. There is this one verse towards the end of the song where Henry really shines with a throaty, shouting delivery, and then the song transitions back to Petrie's clean voice. Great production, great writing, great performances, great atmosphere. It's everything I want in a song.
But so much has changed since then.
I Am Complete is another one of my favorites from this album. Even though this song is all clean singing, Petrie carries it. Now, I know this song is probably a bit sappy for the more metal elitists out there, but I'm a sucker for sappy stuff sometimes.
Where can I fall when there's no one to catch me? What will I do when my soul breaks? Will you be there?
My only real complaint is that this song sounds like it should be a duet, especially towards the end with the repeated lines. There should be a woman backing Petrie up here, but there's not. Dreaming of Oblivion is another that opens with a more rocking beat and guttural vocals that oddly remind me of old Paradise Lost. another song where Henry growls the verses and Petrie sings the choruses. But for me, what makes this song stand out from other potential picks is the mid-song change-up. It seamlessly changes the tone of the song, and if you're just listening along, you'll barely notice it until it finds its way back to the beginning. Completion is the continuation of Farewell. It's another instrumental that ends the album, but this one is half the runtime. Completion conveys a feeling of finality in a way that makes you feel like this band knew this was going to be their last thing you would ever hear from them. Every time I listen to this song, it manages to conjure up every emotion I have around the fact that there is no more music from this band to listen to. And every time I feel it as intensely as the first. This is another great album from them. It is a little more mainstreamy, but they still maintain their original atmosphere from Futile, for the most part. The run times have been cut down for more of a standard listening experience, and the songs do follow a more pop music verse-chorus structure, while still exploring the doomier sonic landscapes. To me, Rapture is one of the more unique bands that plays with these themes. While they do have a lot in common with Catatonia, Swallow the Sun, Daylight Dies, and November's Doom, Rapture stands out on its own, even when compared to those heavy hitters. It's just a shame that we haven't heard anything from them in 20 years. Officially, they are still together, but I'm not expecting anything 20 years later. But who knows? Crazier things have happened in music. The reason why I chose to do a video on this band is because I feel like they don't get talked about enough. And with the recent resurgence of goth metal, maybe bands like this will find new life in the following years. I'm old enough to remember that back in the 90s, people were listening to a lot of music from the 60s and the 70s to find new inspiration. And maybe the late 20s or early 30s, people will be looking back to the early aughts for inspiration. Either way, I hope you found something in this video that caught your interest. And if you haven't, well, maybe you'll join me next time on Why You Might Like Metal.